Hey guys! In today's video, we'll meet Aurora Lindstrom, who, after an asthma attack, had an eye-opening near-death experience. She encountered Jesus and received surprising revelations about Michael Jackson and the true essence of forgiveness and divine love. Get ready for a story of spiritual transformation that will challenge everything you think about life and the afterlife. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any content like this. Let's get started. My name is Aurora Lindstrom, and I grew up in Malibu, California. Since I was little, I've always been considered introspective, kind of living in a world of my own. My grandmother, Evelyn, used to joke that I was an old soul, and that this explained my quiet, reserved nature. While the other children spent their days playing on the beach, I preferred to explore her house, a cozy little house, smelling of lavender and tea. On the shelves, there were old books and colorful crystals that seemed to contain stories from all over the world, and I could spend hours observing and imagining what each of them kept secret. When I turned 10, my grandmother started telling me more about her faith and what she believed about the universe. "And Aurora," she would tell me, "there is something much bigger out there, a strength, a love, that is always by our side, even in the most difficult times." Her words were like poetry to me, even though I was still too young to understand everything she said. Evelyn was the wisest figure I knew, and she filled every corner of my life with a sense of peace and security. But life has its cycles, and at the age of 17, my grandmother left this world. I was devastated. I remember spending months after that sitting on the beach, looking at the horizon and wondering where she was, if that something bigger she mentioned welcomed her. I felt like, somehow, his presence was still with me, but the emptiness was undeniable. It was as if a part of me had left with her. Now, at 33, with 2 young children and a broken marriage, that void seemed to have grown. I loved my children deeply, but there was something in me that remained restless, searching for a purpose, for a deeper meaning. I followed my passion for art, but even that didn't seem enough to fill that space inside me. The routine, the responsibilities, and even the divorce brought challenges that seemed to take me further and further away from my essence. And it was in this state of discouragement that an asthma attack took me by surprise, bringing back everything I was trying to hide, suffocating my soul and my body. This crisis would be the starting point of a journey I could never have imagined, a journey that would connect me with my grandmother, with the divine, and that would bring transformative revelations that would change my life forever. Over time, life became a cycle of responsibilities that seemed to drain my energy. I put art aside to focus on my children and the house. The feeling that I wasn't enough as a mother, wife, and, above all, as a person, accompanied me in silence. The breakup only reinforced these insecurities, and I found myself trying to deal with deep hurts that were only building up. Instead of expressing them, I kept them inside. They were there, weighing on me like an invisible burden that was becoming unbearable. And then, on a cold December night, came the most intense asthma attack I have ever experienced. It started with a small difficulty breathing, something I had experienced before, but it soon turned into something that felt unbearable. I tried to suck in air, but my lungs seemed to block each attempt, as if they were determined to suffocate me. It was a terrible feeling, the clear realization that I might not survive. As I lay in bed, desperate, a part of me began to accept that this could be the end. I remember looking up at the ceiling, my face covered in sweat and tears, and thinking that if anyone was listening to me, I needed help. For the first time since my grandmother's death, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I prayed. It was not a long or formal prayer. It was a plea in desperation. "Grandma Evelyn," I whispered, my voice weak and shaky, "help me. I don't know what to do." My mind wandered between fear and hope, and then something unexpected started to happen. I felt lightness, as if gravity had lessened. The environment around me seemed to change texture. Suddenly, everything was calm. The pain and suffocation lessened, as if someone had gently removed the weight pressing on my chest. My eyes closed, but I could feel a different presence in the room. A feeling of warmth and peace washed over me, bringing a calm I had never experienced before. Something, or someone, was with me. The room seemed to be bathed in a soft light, as if the entire room was embraced by this energy. The pain, the loneliness, the fear, everything seemed to be absorbed by the comforting presence that I somehow knew was my grandmother. She was there, with me, and in her silence I felt the promise that everything would be okay. At that moment, the asthma attack had not yet passed, but my soul was beginning to breathe in a way I had never felt before. That presence was just the beginning of what would be a journey into the inexplicable and the divine. Lying down, almost immobilized by lack of air, my mind oscillated between lucidity and delirium. But then, surrounded by that feeling of peace, I began to see something. It was an ethereal form, a soft white light that seemed to fill the room. At first I thought it was part of a hallucination, a trick of my critically ill body. But that presence, wrapped in a cloak of light, became clearer and clearer, and I felt a delicate touch on my forehead, a touch I knew very well. It was her, my grandmother, Evelyn. It was as if her presence crossed the barriers of time and space to be by my side, just as she did when I was a child and needed comfort. Aurora, my girl, I heard her voice in my mind, sweet and serene. The feeling of love and security that emanated from her was indescribable. My chest, previously suffocated, opened as if that touch had released all the fear and anguish that had accumulated in silence. "Oh, Grandma, are you here?" I managed to mutter, my voice shaky and broken. She didn't respond with words, but the peace she radiated was the answer. In the midst of this communion, I felt the weight of all despair dissolving. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, like my whole life had led me to this moment. But then, an even more powerful energy was present. She was different from my grandmother, but equally engaging and welcoming. The white light that filled the room began to turn a soft shade of blue, and a female figure radiating unconditional love revealed itself. I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that presence was that of the Virgin Mary. I was never a religious person, but in that moment, my entire soul bowed before that manifestation of pure love. She was like a mother, and I was a lost daughter, looking for a way back home. I felt tears fall from my eyes, but they weren't from pain or sadness. They were of relief, of a love that filled me completely. Without needing to say a word, the Virgin Mary anchored my soul in a feeling of peace, as if I were being protected from the storms that inhabited my heart. The room, now illuminated by His presence, seemed to transcend the physical world. It was as if I was being taken to another plane, where everything was harmony and completeness. In that state, I knew I wasn't alone. My grandmother was there, reminding me of the love that never abandoned me, and the Virgin Mary, radiating a maternal and sacred love that dissolved all my pain and fear. It was the beginning of a profound healing, one that touched not just my body, but every layer of my existence. It was then that a third presence revealed itself, an even more intense and protective presence, which looked at me as if it could see every corner of my soul, and I knew Archangel Michael was there. In the midst of that peace and that feeling of being supported, an immense presence made itself felt. It wasn't just a light, it was an energy so powerful that it filled the room and even seemed to expand the walls of the room. I felt a shiver run through my body. I looked around, and there he was, a huge, imposing figure, with a posture that conveyed strength and authority. Without really understanding how, I knew it was Archangel Michael. He stood before me, radiating an aura of security that almost made me forget how weakened my body was. His presence was so immense that it felt like my own breath was mixing with his energy. I looked at him, enchanted and scared at the same time, and I noticed that he was looking at me with a depth that seemed to pierce my soul. "You are carrying a heavy burden, Aurora," he said, in a voice that was not audible like sound, but a vibration that I felt in my being. Mortius, guilt, resentment, they are in your lungs, suffocating your spirit as much as your body. This burden is not yours to bear. I stood there, motionless, absorbing his words. I felt like he could see everything, every pain I kept silent, every repressed emotion. It made me feel vulnerable, but at the same time, I felt indescribable relief. I don't know how to get rid of this," I replied mentally, as if he could hear my thoughts. And at that moment, Miguel enveloped me with his energy, almost as if he were hugging me. His touch wasn't physical, but it was like he was embracing my soul. "Releasing these emotions is the path to your healing," he said. "You need to forgive yourself, Aurora. Forgive the young woman who took on too much responsibility, the woman who believed she wasn't enough, and the mother who always thought she could have done more. You need to let go of those hurts." His words sank in deeply, and I felt my heart begin to give way, as if it was making room for something new. I felt my chest warm, as if the sorrows were being dissolved. It was a feeling of liberation, of finally allowing these wounds to receive the healing balm. Miguel wasn't just there to comfort me. He was there to guide me on the journey I needed to take. Remember, he continued, you are not alone. All the love you need already exists within you, but you need to allow it to blossom, without the weight of hurt and guilt. His words were like an echo that filled every cell in my body. I closed my eyes and felt that the energies of the past, the pain, the accumulated hurt, were fading away. With Archangel Michael by my side, I finally began to believe that I could free myself from what was suffocating me. But what came next was something I could never have imagined. An even greater presence, there to show me the greatest lesson of all. While Miguel's energy was still hovering over me, I felt the presence of another entity approaching. It was a presence so sublime that it made me collapse in emotion and reverence, something more intense and profound than anything I had experienced until then. I was enveloped in a golden light, radiant and warm, and somehow I knew who was there. Jesus. He appeared before me, enveloped in a light that seemed to emanate directly from the heart. Looking at him was like seeing the very essence of love. In an instant, I felt as if all the barriers I had built up over the years simply fell away. He looked at me with a tenderness that seemed to see even the darkest parts of me, but without judgment, just understanding. You carry many judgments in your heart, Aurora, he said, his voice soft and deep. Like many others, you were taught to look at the world and people with critical eyes, to carry the weight of expectations, and to suffer from your own limitations. But judgment is a prison, both for those who judge and for those who are judged. His every word penetrated my soul. I always thought that my opinion about others, about the world, was a question of justice, of right and wrong. But now, Jesus showed me that this judgment did nothing but keep my heart caged, trapped in concepts and resentments that were not part of my essence. It was then that he showed me a scene that surprised me deeply. It was an image of Michael Jackson, the public figure, the artist whose life was always surrounded by controversy, trials, and persecution. Jesus, with indescribable calm, revealed that he, like so many others, suffered deeply on earth, not only for his mistakes, but for the misunderstanding and cruelty of public judgments. He suffered in life, said Jesus, but found forgiveness after death. Today, he rests in peace, freed from the burdens that were unfairly imposed on him. This revelation shocked me. The weight of the judgment that people impose on each other, the consequences of that. I realized that I myself contributed to this network of condemnation without even realizing it. Jesus was showing me that by judging, I was not only hurting others, but also hurting myself, carrying energies of bitterness and superiority that kept me from true love. Tears were streaming down my face. I understood that forgiveness was more than a noble attitude. It was a door to true peace. Jesus looked at me with infinite compassion and said, Aurora, free yourself. Let go of those judgments and allow your heart to open to the truth. Everyone deserves a second chance, and you too. I felt as if an immense burden had been lifted from me. My heart, previously so hardened by judgments and resentments, was now light, beating in tune with a peace I had never felt. With Jesus' serene gaze still on me, I understood that this was just the beginning of what he and the others wanted to show me. I felt that, after Jesus' words, something inside me had been broken and at the same time freed. It was as if an invisible barrier separating me from my own essence had dissolved. Surrounded by the divine energy of Jesus, the Virgin Mary, and Archangel Michael, I began to feel something extraordinary, a deep spiritual healing that touched every cell in my body and every thought in my mind. It was as if they were infusing me with a light, a warmth, something that purified and transformed. As this energy flowed through my chest, my previously suffocated and tense lungs began to expand. It was as if all the pain I held inside was being dissolved, layer by layer, and replaced by a feeling of lightness. My breathing became easier, but now it was more than just pulling in air. I was breathing with my soul, feeling a peace that filled every space within me. With my eyes closed, but with an expanded consciousness, I felt that my soul began to rise, as if I were leaving my physical body. I was scared at first, thinking that maybe I was really dying. But Miguel, with his firm and loving presence, reassured me. Aurora, he said, This is not the end. You are being guided to an awakening, to understand what you really are. As my spirit floated, I remained fully aware of what was happening. I felt free from the weight of my body, from physical limitations, and for the first time I experienced the feeling of being an expanded part of the universe, like a drop that dissolves in the ocean, but still knows that it is unique. It was an ecstatic sensation, a total absence of fear, a complete surrender to peace. This healing, said Miguel, is not just for the body, but for your soul. You have carried pain, hurt, and resentment for a long time. It's time to release that and allow yourself to just be love. His every word felt like a key opening the doors of new understanding. The pain, the sadness, the judgments I carried, all of it was now being transformed into something light, soft, and dissipating like clouds in the wind. In this state of expansion, I felt as if my mind was joining with something much greater, something that was beyond any earthly understanding. It was as if a part of me was preparing for an encounter with what they call divine. I knew I was being guided to something beyond, an experience of merging with the universe. With my heart free and my mind at peace, I was ready to follow Miguel's guidance, which would lead me to the next level of this transformative journey. I knew then that I was in the middle of a unique experience, where time and space seemed to lose meaning. Miguel told me that this feeling was a gift, a chance to see life from a new perspective, and that's when my consciousness expanded even further, preparing me for the encounter with what Miguel called Source, the essence of everything that exists. With my spirit in a state of peace and my consciousness expanded, I felt that something even greater was coming. Miguel was at my side, radiating such a powerful and calming presence that I felt safe, as if nothing could touch me or me, hurt at that moment. Suddenly, I noticed that a tunnel of orange light, with shades of gold and amber, had appeared in front of us. "Come on, Aurora," said Miguel, his voice soft but firm, like that of a guide who knows every step of the journey. "Tell me there is something you need to see, a truth that goes beyond what you know about yourself." With a confidence I never thought I possessed, I took the first step next to him, feeling weightless, as if I were floating through the tunnel. Every step I took was filled with a feeling of warmth and protection, as if the universe itself was enveloping me in a hug. As we walked, Miguel began to tell me about the illusions I had carried in life, the idea that I was defined by my pain, my failures, my mistakes, and even by the expectations that others had of me. These things are part of the human experience, but they don't define who you really are, he said. You are more than that, Aurora, much more. His words echoed deep within my being. It was as if he was removing a veil that covered my true essence, revealing a completely new vision of myself. For the first time, I understood that my value wasn't in being perfect or living up to what others expected of me. I was, in Miguel's words, an unlimited expression of divine consciousness. It sounded mysterious, but at the same time, so familiar. It was as if I had always known this on some deep level, but only now in that lit tunnel did I truly understand it. "What does this mean?" I asked, trying to absorb everything he was telling me. "How can I be limitless when I have spent so much time feeling trapped, limited by my own fears and traumas?" He smiled, a serene smile, and replied, "These limitations are constructions of the mind and ego, Aurora. They are part of the human journey, but they do not represent its essence. You are an expression of Source, of the energy that is in everything and everyone. Once you understand this, you can begin to let go of those bonds and live authentically." As he spoke, a deep understanding dawned on me. It was as if I was waking up from a long dream, realizing that reality was much bigger than I imagined. At the end of the tunnel, I began to feel an even more vast and enveloping presence, something that transcended everything I had experienced up until that point. Miguel indicated that we were reaching the end of our tunnel walk, where I would find the Source, the origin of everything, from where all life and love emanated. I felt my heart beat faster, but at the same time, an indescribable peace enveloped me. I was about to experience something that would change my understanding of life and myself forever. I knew that when I crossed the threshold of this tunnel, nothing would be the same. As I approached the end of the tunnel, I felt a presence of incomprehensible magnitude. It was as if the universe itself enveloped me in a light of infinite brilliance, something that was beyond words. Miguel was still by my side, but now he just seemed like a silent guide, allowing me to absorb and experience this on my own. Upon crossing the threshold of the tunnel, I was instantly enveloped by a feeling of warmth, welcome, and an absolute peace that transcended any earthly emotion. I looked around me, but there were no walls, no floor, no horizon. Everything was light, a living, pulsing light, as if I were inside the heart of the cosmos itself. It was the presence of Source, the origin of all life and consciousness, a divine essence that seemed to envelop me completely. And the most impressive thing was the feeling of unity. I was not just surrounded by the Source. I was part of it. There were no longer any boundaries between what I was and what this light represented. For the first time, I felt that my true essence was infinite, limitless. A voice, soft as the whisper of a breeze, spoke in my mind. "Sorora, you're home. You are part of everything that exists, and everything is part of you." This statement resonated within me with such powerful truth that tears of ecstasy ran down my face. I felt that every emotion, thought, and memory was welcomed by Source with unconditional love. I was completely loved and accepted, without judgment, without expectations, just as an expression of divinity itself. I saw myself dissolve little by little into pure energy, into pure consciousness. There was no longer a separate I, just a vastness of love and peace that filled me completely. In a state of indescribable ecstasy, I was overcome with the certainty that this oneness on this Source was who we all truly are. Everything in existence, from the smallest creature to the most distant stars, was part of this same field of infinite love. I began to realize that the Source was not something distant or unreachable. She was always within me and all beings. In my mind, I received a clear and direct message. "Aurora, remember this when you return. You are not defined by your pains, limitations, or beliefs. You are a living expression of universal consciousness, and so are everyone around you. Live with this truth and share it with the world." I felt a deep reverence and gratitude. That moment of unity was the revelation I had been searching for all my life, without even knowing it. All the answers were there, not in words, but in an understanding that transcends human language. I experienced a lightness and joy that I had never felt before. I was free, infinite, and completely united with everything and everyone. I was overcome with a profound understanding that love is the true nature of everything. Slowly, I felt Miguel beside me again, guiding me back. I knew it was time to return to my body, but with this new awareness, this memory of who I really am, I was ready to go back and live my life with a new purpose, a mission to remind others of the limitless potential we all possess. When I began to feel Miguel's presence beside me again, I knew I was being called back to my body, back to the physical world. But this time, something was different. My mind was no longer bound by the limitations of earthly life. I carried within me an expansion of consciousness, a clear reminder of the divine unity I had just experienced. I felt like someone who had just woken up from a long and deep dream, finally aware of their own essence. As Miguel gently guided me back, he touched my chest, where my heart beat in a calm, steady rhythm. "Remember, Aurora," he said, in his soft, firm voice. "You carry within you a spark of this Source, of this unconditional love. Never allow fear, guilt, or judgment to dim that light. It will always be there, waiting for you to connect with it." Throughout the return process, I began to feel my physical body again. First it was my arms, my fingers, then the weight of my legs, and finally the gentle breath coming in and out of my lungs. It was as if every part of my body was being delicately reintegrated, like a reunion with my own being. But now, there was a difference. I was coming back with a new understanding, with a peace that filled every cell in my body. Miguel guided me to focus on the energy centers that ran through my body, the chakras, explaining that I could access this expansion of consciousness at any time, through them. I felt energy flow through these points like a subtle, comforting current that linked me back to the unity I had experienced. It was as if Source itself was being anchored into every part of my being, preparing me to live this new reality. When I opened my eyes, I felt tears run down my face. They were not tears of pain or sadness, but of deep gratitude and joy. My room was silent. The soft light of dawn was beginning to filter through the windows, and everything felt incredibly beautiful and vibrant, as if the world had been renewed along with me. I took a deep breath, feeling that the asthma that once suffocated me was now just a faint echo, a memory of the past. As I placed my hand on my chest, I felt the presence of my grandmother, Michael, Mary, and even Jesus. They were with me, but now inside me, as part of my very essence. I knew my life would never be the same again. I was no longer defined by fears, judgments, or insecurities. The source, this divine consciousness, was now my new reality, and I felt like I had been blessed with a mission to live in accordance with this truth and spread this understanding to the world. Outside, I heard the gentle sound of waves, and I knew the universe was greeting me back. I was a new Aurora, reborn with the light of divine knowledge. The world felt like a place full of love and possibility, and I was ready to live it to the full potential of my true essence. Upon returning to my routine, I felt a profound change in every detail of my life. I knew I couldn't live the same way anymore, that my purpose had expanded to something beyond just being Aurora, the mother, the artist, or even the woman from Malibu. Now I had a different awareness, a certainty that we are all an expression of the same source, of the same divine love. And my mission was to live in accordance with this truth by finding ways to share this understanding with others. In the early days, I wondered how I could communicate something so immense, so profound in words. My children were the first to notice the difference in me. Instead of rushing to meet daily demands, I found myself more serene, more patient, more present with them. In each moment, I was reminded of the unity I had experienced and that this same divine essence dwelt within them. My way of looking at them, and at each person I met, was different. I saw in each one a part of this unity, a part of myself. As the days passed, I realized that my mission didn't have to be grand or flashy. I began to realize that the biggest transformation could be in my own daily gestures, in the way I chose to respond to situations and challenges. Miguel had taught me that every thought and emotion carried creative power, so I tried to keep my heart and mind aligned with the energy of peace and love that I had experienced. This inner change was soon reflected in my art. I felt inspired to paint again, but now with a new purpose. Each canvas was an attempt to capture and express the peace and unity I had felt at the source. I started to connect more deeply with my feelings and use colors and shapes to convey this new understanding of life. To my surprise, people who saw my work said they could feel something special, something that touched them in a way they couldn't explain. Some friends came to look for me, curious about this change they saw in me. They asked what I had done to look so at peace, so renewed. I told them what I had experienced, what I had discovered about forgiveness, judgment, and universal love. By sharing my experience, I realized that this was my mission, not just talking about love, but living it, being the example of this unconditional love that had transformed me. Today, I live with the certainty that we all have divine and unlimited potential. We all carry within us the ability to create a reality of peace and harmony, to free ourselves from judgment and to reconnect with our essence. Every day is a new opportunity to love more, to judge less, and to remember that we are all sparks of the same divine source. With gratitude, I honor this mission given to me, knowing that, deep down, true transformation happens from the inside out, and that love is, and always will be, the greatest power in the universe. If you like this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.